to participate in the Olympics. But if you would like to, on Thursday the 28th, we will be having a Olympic event. There's 4 of them, and the Great Tankini is one of our events that we'll be looking at today, and so is Pennies from Heaven. And then there is a hula hoop challenge called Simon Says Hula Hoops, and that is the 3rd Olympic event. And then the 4th and final event is Angry Birds, and you guys are going to be playing Angry Birds with me, if you'd like, with a catapult or launcher that you're going to make next week. So there are materials posted for that, I think, on Edsby. I know that you've got a couple more labs. You've got 3 more labs, so 2 this week, 1 next week, and participating in the labs is optional, but filling out your lab sheet, the worksheet or lab report that goes with it, is not optional. That is what you're going to turn in for a grade. So today's lab, called Newton and the Great Tankini, is due this Friday by noon. And the lab that we're going to do on Thursday, which is called Hula Hoopla, where I will be hula hooping for you, that lab will be due also on Friday by noon. So both of these labs I'm going to do completely with you. So if you don't want to participate in them and you just want to watch and fill in your sheet, you'll be able to do so either live through the class or on YouTube if you want to watch these videos later. And if you want to practice today, some things that you would want for today's lab are the nice smooth table with a tablecloth and a pan. Let me actually show you what I got here for materials. All right, so I have set up a table of dishes here for you. So if you want to participate today with me, you will have some type of dishes that are smooth, like, let's see here. So you want dishes that are, well, first of all, maybe not breakable, just while you're practicing. I mean, you can work up to, your mom's good china later. But while we're starting off, you might want to use something plastic maybe. But the important part is that things are smooth. So you don't want, there's a tiny little lip, but for the most part, this is pretty smooth. Same with this. Something that works pretty well too is like a pan. A lot of pans are real smooth on the bottom, and metal is naturally pretty smooth material. So you will want some objects that are smooth, and also an object that you can put something in, like water. And the reason this is called the Great Tankini is because you might get wet. So you might want to wear your tankini. So that is an option, whether or not you want to put water in it, but you want to do something where you can add weight. So it could be just adding more dishes, or it could be adding water or something else into your dish or your pan. You also want a smooth surface. So I am using my dining room table here that is nice and smooth. So you want some type of a smooth surface. All right. And for the cloth, you want a cloth that doesn't have any seams in it or any stitching. You want it also to be really smooth. So what I have here is a cloth that, and I have a couple of these. It was actually a curtain that I had cut up at one point. And you also want to have, of course, either a white rabbit or a white cat in order to do your proper magic trick, because you got to have a magician's assistant, right? Okay, all right, so Here we go. Oh, and that is the Great Tankini. But we also have Pennies from Heaven. Not in the title of the lab, but that is also another lab activity we're going to do. So if you take a look at my counter right here, I have set up some Pennies from Heaven materials here. And so what you want to have is ideally, you'd have an Erlenmeyer flask, but I bet a lot of you do not have an Erlenmeyer flask handy. So you can use instead just a regular glass. And this glass is a breakable one. So you might want to use one that doesn't break, but hopefully the glass itself won't move. You also want some pennies. You could use nickels or dimes or quarters if you want, but you do want them all to be the same size. So don't mix up your quarters and your nickels and your dimes, make them all the same. Okay, and then you'll want a playing card. You could use an index card, or you can use a playing card, and then you will stack your coins up like this. Like that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now you've got your materials. And let's go back to our slide for just a moment. Make sure we got what we need today and know when things are due. Okay. So the only thing that you have to have today is your Newton and the Great Tankini lab report, that worksheet. And the rest of the materials are optional. Remember, participating in the lab and doing these tricks with us is optional, but turning in the lab report is not, and it's due by Friday at noon. And let's check out what it looks like. Oh, my screen just... Oh, there we go. My screen just froze for a minute here. And am I recording? Let's see. I am recording. I did remember to record. Okay, great. All right, so this is the document that you, put my share button there. This is what you are filling your answers in on. I'm sorry. I don't think you were looking at the right thing. Okay, let me see. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't. I wasn't. Okay, so here is Newton and the Great Tankini lab activity, the sheet that you're going to put your answers in. Today, it's going to be, this is a really simple one. No big calculations here at all. Actually, no calculations at all. So you don't need a calculator. Thursday's lab, the hula hoopla, you will want a calculator and a timer for. This one, you're just going to answer some questions. And there's only 10 questions total. There are 6 questions that you're going to answer about the Great Tankini and 4 questions that you're going to answer about Pennies from Heaven. All right? And to get us excited about physics, I am going to share with you this video of one of my favorite dogs. Not my very favorite dog, because Yogi is my favorite dog, but I love this dog, Jumpy. Super cool, and his owner, Alex. So check out Jumpy, and you know what, hold on. I want to make sure that I optimize the video. Okay, all right, so I should be able to play this for you now. Enjoy. Whoops.
But Jamaica to live on the beach, exploring surroundings, Utopia is in our reach. It's not that far. plastic straws. Too long where we are. Throw up our incense, we'll make it. It's not that far. We can all go west tomorrow. No need for plans today. We won't hit the speed of light anyway. Let's get in trouble, face us. Not a minute before. Today we celebrate and hit the floor. We can all go west tomorrow. No need for plans today. We won't hit the speed of light anyway. Let's get in trouble, face us. Not a minute before. Today we celebrate and hit the floor. We can all go west tomorrow. No need for plans today. We won't hit the speed of light anyway. Let's get in trouble, face us. Not a minute before. Today we celebrate and hit the floor.
So cute, right? I like it. All right. So, all right, coming back here. Okay, so now let's take a look at the Great Tankini. I am going to attempt to pull the tablecloth out from underneath these dishes. So watch as me, the Great Tankini, dazzles you with my magic. Okay. Wow, so I got some of it. Okay, so let's take a look at how we might do this a little better. Actually, really, the only thing that fell for me was the, let's see, can we see it down here? The silverware. The silverware was tough because they don't have, the silverware doesn't have a lot of mass. So we're going today to look at how mass affects acceleration and force. So we're going to look at that relationship. So let's take a look at our hypothesis here. We have said, and I actually wrote the hypothesis for you already, is that you would, make this a little bit bigger here. Where is it? Okay, if the mass of an object increases, I will have to apply a greater force to make the object accelerate because Newton's second law states that force equals mass times acceleration. All right, so that is our hypothesis. So that's what we're kind of looking to do today. And we're actually not really writing a conclusion as much as we're just answering some questions about the motion of things through Newton's law. So I had it set up already for you that you place the tablecloth on a smooth table and you put your dishes on top. I also mentioned how you should grasp the cloth in both of your hands and stand back a few inches from the front of the table and quickly yank the cloth from under the dishes. You want to yank downward, it helps a lot. And then we're going to add mass. So I'm going to be adding mass to my table setting, and I'm also going to take some mass away to show you the difference. So let's answer this first question. Actually, yeah, let's look at the question and then let's try it. So what would happen if you pulled the cloth slowly instead of a quick yank? Okay, so let's take a look at that. So what if instead of pulling the tablecloth fast like I did, what if all I did was pull it slowly? What's gonna happen if I pull this slowly? Yeah, it's going to kind of go with the cloth and then fall on the ground, and that is not what you want to have happen. So let's try this again. Oh, we got a couple more people coming in. Hi, Alejandro. Hi, Jacob. Welcome. Okay, so when we pull the cloth very slowly, all the things come with us. So one of the strategies here in this trick is to pull quickly. Another thing is to pull downward. So I'm going to show you as we set this up here again. Set up just right. So I've got, just going to put a pan on it right now. Very little mass, just a pan. We'll pick up the dishes that I spilled on the table or knocked off the table. Okay, so with this pan, I will show you. One of the things you want to do is, hopefully you can see this. Try to get a little closer, maybe. Okay, so you want to grasp the tablecloth, kind of cinch it up in your hands a little bit versus holding the very edge. So kind of wind it up in your hand. Don't stand too close to the table either. Stand a little bit apart. You also would like to have the tablecloth best you can, not wrinkled, like bunching up on the plates and dishes. And you want to maybe this helps a little bit. It's a little bit of a trick to not have the tablecloth all the way across. You can just have the pan kind of towards the edge. You know, it'd be really easy and kind of cheating if you had it on the very edge, but you don't need to have that much. You need to have more cloth on this side closer to you and the dish than on the other side of the dish further away. Okay, you cinch up, and all you simply do is you're going to yank fast and down and towards you. So like that. All right. And then it's really not a difficult trick if you've got smooth surface, because why do you suppose you want things to be smooth? What force might oppose the motion that I'm trying to have happen? I'm trying to get the tablecloth out from under the dishes. What force might oppose that motion? Anyone? What might be an opposing force? I'm trying to pull the tablecloth. What might be fighting me, so to speak? A force acting in the opposite direction of my pull of the cloth. Anyone? Hannah.
I was going to say that people are answering in the chat.
Oh, okay. They are, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I see. Yes. Zane and Reese. Gravity, inertia. Yeah. Okay. That's true. Thank you, Hannah, for letting me know that. I am giving out some dojo today. I had to turn off the ringer. Okay, we'll turn that back on, and I'll give this to Hannah and Reese and Zane. Okay. So I can't do this fast enough. There. And Zane. Oh, good. They're next to each other. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So it's actually, well, honestly, though, none of those answers are correct. So, but you got points for it anyway. So I am pulling on the tablecloth. That is one force. What force might be acting in opposition? And this would be why I would want everything to be really smooth. Evan.
Oh, I was going to say friction.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Right, friction. Because friction is one of those forces that acts on objects that are in contact with one another. Okay, it's called sliding friction. So if we were using you know, a really rough table or a tablecloth that had stitching and stuff in it, or dishes that had a ridge on it, like, I don't know if you can see this, it's too dark. Mirror, you know, like something like this that isn't flat and smooth, that wouldn't work very well. So we want there to be very little friction. Is there still some friction? Yes. So we want our pull of the cloth to be the unbalanced force that makes the cloth move. Now, inertia was mentioned, and inertia is important in this activity, but we don't necessarily, where do we want the most inertia? What objects do we want to stay at rest? Oops. We want the dishes to stay at rest, right? And we want the cloth to move. So we want our unbalanced force to act on the cloth, not on the dishes. Is there some force acting on the dishes? Yes, some friction between the cloth and the dishes is going to happen. So that's why yanking the cloth with a more quickly exerts a little bit more force on it as well to overcome that little bit of friction that is in existence there. Okay, so let's look at our next question was about adding mass. Okay, so question 2 says, how did adding mass affect it? Well, let's try that. Let's do this again, but let's add mass. And now I'll add water to the situation because water will add mass to it and a little bit of fun and challenge. And this is why we call it the Great Tankini, in case I get wet. But I'm not wearing my Tankini today. I am wearing my Einstein shirt. Einstein had a theory about gravity called the theory of special relativity, and we'll learn about that later. Okay, so we have this pan right here that I'm gonna sit down on here and move this a little bit. Okay, all right, and so now we did this very easily without any water in it, very low mass, didn't require much, didn't move too much. But did you notice that it did kind of move a little bit like this? Now, does this pan right now have inertia? And I will tell you it does, but can somebody tell me, describe what inertia is and what does it mean? When we say this pan has inertia, what does that mean? It's a property of an object that does what? Hannah?
Inertia is basically like when an object wants to go in a certain direction and keep going that direction until acted upon by another or equal or opposite force. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. So so inertia is an object's ability to stay doing whatever it's doing. So if the object on our table, the dish, is sitting at rest, we want it to sit at rest, right? So this pan right now has inertia, but we're going to give it more inertia by adding water. Can anybody explain why adding water increases the inertia of the pan? Anyone? You guys are chatting it to me, aren't you? More, yes, that's right, Alex. More mass has more inertia. Correct. Good job. I turned the ringer off so you don't hear the dojo beeping, but it's happening. It's happening right now. Okay, so I have some water in here, and I am going to pour it. Oh no. I just got my tablecloth a little wet. That actually was not good. Can anybody tell me why I don't want my tablecloth to be wet? Anyone? No, why would I not want my tablecloth to be wet? It would stick. Yeah, exactly. It would increase that friction between the tablecloth and the well, and the dish if the dish is wet, or the table if the table is wet. And so I am going to have to overcome that, and that's okay. No, I don't. I have another tablecloth. All right, let's put a new cloth on. It wasn't that wet. I still had confidence I could do it, but since I have this option. Okay, so now I have water in this dish. And it was wet on the bottom, so actually it got wet again. But you can see that there is water. This is about a little more than halfway filled. It's kind of full. It's got a lot more mass than it had before, which means it has more inertia. Why do I want more mass in my pan? Why is that a good thing? Anybody? John Ben?
Because it will keep the pan in place while you're pulling the tablecloth away from it.
Yes, right. It's the pan will be more likely to stay at rest, which is what you want to have happen because it has more inertia. So more inertia, the more resistance to change. So if the pan has more mass in it, it's going to be more likely to stay at rest than when it didn't have water in it or had less mass. Okay, excellent. And we'll get that for John Ben. Okay, so now how might I need to pull the cloth differently now that I have all this water in here and therefore more mass? Anybody? How? So according to Newton's second law, there is a relationship between force, mass, and acceleration. So if I want this cloth to accelerate, but I want the pan to stay put, I need to exert an unbalanced force on the cloth to make it accelerate, but I want the pan to have more mass, more inertia, more likely to stay put. But now that it has more mass, if I pull this cloth with the same amount of force as I did before, the pan is just going to go with it and fall on the ground and I'm going to get wet. But if I pull it with a greater force, then I should be able to be more successful at getting the cloth to accelerate while the pan stays put. Remember, cinch up a little bit on it, stand back a little bit, and pull down, not up. Okay. It did slosh out just a little bit, that water, but the pan moved a little less. Okay, so it did actually move a little bit, but it didn't spill. Okay, so before we start Pennies from Heaven, I want to show you a couple of videos that I think you'll enjoy about this. Let's see here. Okay. So I'm going to start with this one. I hope nobody gets offended by this. It's just for fun. Okay, here is Pope Francis doing the tablecloth trick.
So everybody is still talking about the Pope's visit. He met with the president and he made a speech at the UN. I don't know why more people aren't talking about this. I was really impressed with what he did. He went to the cathedral in Washington. Did y'all see this? Yeah.
What do you think? Oh, Cooper is coming. Okay. Hey, Cooper, you just missed it. Okay, maybe we need to see it again. All right, we'll watch. Pope St. Francis doing the great Tankini.
The Pope's visit, he met with the president and he made a speech at the UN. I don't know why more people aren't talking about this. I was really impressed with what he did. He went to the cathedral in Washington. Did y'all see this? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, somebody wanted to make a comment on that. Let's see. What do you got to say about that? What's the answer for number 5? How does he do it? I don't know how he does it. Okay, answer to number 5. Okay, so let's see. Question 5. All right. I had something else in the sheet, but let's go. So somebody wants number 5. Let's take a look at it. All right. So Newton's first law of inertia, says that an object at rest wants to stay at rest. Explain why the dish stays on the table in terms of this law. Okay. Well, although I am not going to all out give you an answer here, I would be open to hearing some of you share your thoughts on why you think the dish stays on the table in terms of Newton's law, first law. What do you think? Anybody you want to? Okay, well, yes, John Ben.
Maybe it's inertia balanced out with the force of the tablecloth moving from under it, so it just stayed put rather than go with it.
Okay. Okay. So you are saying that there's not a lot of friction. Can you repeat what you just said?
It's just, I don't know, the way I thought about it when I looked at the question, maybe it's something to do with inertia or friction where it kind of balances out with the force of the tablecloth moving under it, so it just stays put.
Okay, so you're kind of putting together all the laws on that one. This is just real simple. Just Newton's first law. Why does an object want to stay at rest?
Oh, by inertia. Because
it has inertia. Right, exactly. So the dish stays at rest because it has mass and therefore it has inertia. Oops, I just did what I said I wasn't going to do, which was tell you the answer to that. But John Ben helped us get to that one. Yeah. Okay. And then question 6 is asking, let's see, Newton's second law, the law of acceleration, says that an object with an unbalanced force acting on it will accelerate. What is the unbalanced force acting on the cloth to make it accelerate? So in order to make the tablecloth go out from underneath the dishes, you got to pull the tablecloth out from underneath the dishes. Right? So what is the unbalanced force that makes the cloth accelerate? What force makes that cloth move? Not the dishes, but the cloth. So you think about that and then you can answer it. That's kind of a rhetorical one. I'll let you guys answer that one on your own. That one's easy. Don't think too deeply on that. All right, let's then look at one more video, actually, I wanted to show you before we do Pennies from Heaven. And that one, I think, I might shorten a little bit here, but Mythbusters did, so there was this video that was circulating a while back about this BMW road bike that pulled tablecloth out from underneath like a 100-piece place setting. And it was all on the internet, and so Mythbusters did an episode about it, and so I'm going to play part of that for you.
Check this out. hate to break it to you, but I've seen that before. It's a magic trick. It's not a myth.
This isn't, but there's a video that's been making the rounds on the web that is a twist to this trick that I think is right up our alley.
And that is?
In this clip, a table as long as a bus and set for a banquet has its tablecloth pulled out from under all its settings without disturbing any of them, using only the power of a super souped-up motorcycle.
Now you're talking.
Thought you'd like it.
In this viral video, rather than a quick flick of the wrist, it's a quick flick of the accelerator. And abracadabra, the tablecloth disappears, and a perfectly laid table remains. But is this turbocharged trick true, or just special effects sorcery?
All set up? You ready to ruin Christmas dinner?
I can't wait.
Uncle Jamie always does that. Get started.
Well, as you can see, that didn't work out so well. So they try a few different things, like giving the more slack to the bike, so they add more rope. They also, so that they can accelerate and get to a faster speed to be that quick yank. And fast forwarding a little bit, they try this again.
As Jamie throttles the throttle, the line unspools and...
That was so much closer than I thought it would be.
Well, it's better, but it's not perfect. And what they realize is that it was faked by putting some plastic on the table ahead of time. So they try it again. Let's see. If I go back just a little bit before this.
You're going to need like a quarter mile to get up to that speed.
Let's go find a quarter mile.
Okay. All right, here we go. Possibly the world's biggest tablecloth pull in 3, 2, 1, go!
It is better.
Well, that is certainly as good as it gets. It's not bad. Not bad at all. Everything slid, especially on the front half. We lost a few place settings. Most everything is still standing, but honestly, you know what I'm thinking?
What?
They faked it.
Yeah, they faked it. It's busted.
Yeah, totally busted.
Busted. But on Mythbusters, that can only mean one thing.
That run wasn't half bad. In fact, it was pretty darn.
So what they do
Both
is,
sails. And that should actually reduce its coefficient of friction.
Yeah.
But
They
most
put this
importantly,
plastic
I
down
then
on it
laid
to
down on
reduce-
top of the tablecloth a sheet of plastic, 24 feet long, and mounted at the non-motorcycle end of the table. And then we set the table as normal. What this means is that between all the place settings on the tablecloth is a thin membrane on which everything sits. So the tablecloth should, in theory, slip out easy as you please without disturbing anything on the table. That's how I think they did it. This is tablecloth pull, the cheat. 3, 2, 1, go! And that's how it's done.
Okay. So, yeah, as you can see, if you can reduce the friction as much as possible, it's a lot easier to do that trick. So it was kind of busted, but it is possible with that little layer of plastic there. Okay, so now we're going to do our final little trick here, and that is Pennies from Heaven. And in this trick, we have all my stuff here. We have a glass and a playing card, or an index card if you prefer, and a stack of pennies. And in this trick, you guys are going to apply a force that is going to make the card move, but not the pennies. And then the pennies will stay in their position. And when the card isn't there any longer to hold them up, then gravity will be the unbalanced force that pulls them down into the jar or into the glass. So if we were doing this at school, we would have used a beaker and a index card. And then as you got better at it and practiced a little bit, you would have graduated to the Erlenmeyer flask, which is a little bit more challenging because the opening of the beaker is much wider than the opening is of the Erlenmeyer flask. So what you'll want to do, since most of you are not going to have an Erlenmeyer flask or a beaker handy, is get yourself a little drinking glass here and a playing card. I have learned that playing cards work so much better than index cards, and all this time I never knew that. Okay, so stack your pennies there, and you want to get a good even stack. What am I trying to say? You want them to be evenly placed on top of each other. And then you are going to apply a flick to the card, not to the glass, not to the pennies, only to the card, because you want the unbalanced force to be applied to the card and not anything else. All right. And then the unbalanced force of gravity will make the pennies go into the jar like this. Well, almost. Most of them went in. Darn, I usually can get that every time. All right. Are you guys trying this at home? All right, let's try, I'll try the Erlenmeyer flask one. This one I don't always get, but one trick is to make sure that they are over the opening, and then you want to kind of flick it. You can do two finger flick if you want. And absolutely none of them went in. Yay! Okay. I'm usually good at this. However, when I'm in front of an audience, not always so well, huh? Even with practice. But you guys should practice and get good at this. Now, what happens if I were to take twice as many pennies? So I had two stacks of pennies, and I'm going to put them all together, and I am going to put a taller stack of pennies on here. Now, for the force and motion, for the physics Olympics, in order to win this event, it's whoever can stack the most pennies and get the most pennies to go into their glass wins this event. All right. And so what do you suppose I'm going to need to do with my flick that's a little bit different this time now that I have a bigger stack of pennies? Anyone? So in other words, how might I change the force that I apply to this card now that there is more mass sitting on top? Anyone? Somebody's done it 10 times. Hannah, you've done it 10 times already? Awesome. And Zane is doing it too. Oh yeah, all right, awesome. Chase, 2 billion times, that's a lot. Okay, all right, Hannah's saying, flick it harder. I said it twice, okay. All right, exactly. So we're gonna have to apply more force. We're gonna have to flick it harder, more force. Why? Because we have more mass, and according to Newton's second law, if we have more mass, then we need to apply a greater force to make that object accelerate. Now, Newton's second law says that the object with more mass has more inertia, so it's more likely to stay. So honestly, having more pennies should be easier, but Just like in the Great Tankini, you have to apply more force if you have more mass. But when you apply more force to accelerate one object, then you should, the other object, in this case the pennies, you want to stay at rest until gravity acts and directs them straight down. So you've got to apply a bigger flick, and then they all go in. Okay, and I wanted to show you, this is really cool, and I couldn't do it, although I tried, so I'm going to show you the video of this professor doing it, and it's even better than my pennies from heaven. But, okay, so check this out.
Marking. And if we do, there will be only one force acting upon the marking, and that's a down force, the force of gravity. And with that force being the only force, it will no longer stay at rest, but instead accelerate in the direction of the unbalanced force. To do this, what I have to do is abruptly move the sewing ring out from underneath the marking pin, and we should observe that marker falling straight down. So if you believe in physics, let's give it a try. You gotta believe.
He's so cool. All right, so now you just have a couple of questions to answer on the pennies from heaven. And I have seen people stack the physics Olympics record was 96 pennies stacked on the card, and successfully dropped into an Erlenmeyer flask, because we've always done it with an Erlenmeyer flask. This year it should be a lot easier with the glass. So hopefully you will be able to even get more than 96 pennies, but you actually have to have 96 pennies to begin with. So you can have a little bit of time to gather that. Okay, so we have a few minutes left, and we've done the tricks already. I could do a few more tries of them if you would like, and we can also look at some of these questions, but let me see. So there are 4 questions for the pennies from heaven, and they're pretty similar to the Tankini questions. Let's take a look at them again. Okay, so question number 1 on pennies from heaven says that Newton's first law says an object at rest wants to stay at rest unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. What are the balanced forces keeping the pennies at rest on top of the card? And then you're just filling in these blanks, okay? So the downward force of blank and the upward force of blank pushing up on the blank. So there's 3 blanks there. What are we gonna put in them? So tell me, will you, when you have these pennies stacked on the card, what is, so when the pennies are right here on the card, the forces acting on the pennies right now are balanced. How do I know this? Because they are at rest and they're staying at rest. So according to Newton's first law, the pennies have inertia and they are at rest, so they're going to stay at rest unless an unbalanced force acts on them to change their motion. So if these forces are balanced, tell me about these balanced forces. So what's the downward force? Okay, so what's the downward force? That keeps the pennies from just floating away. Instead, they are sitting on the card. They're not floating in outer space. Alejandro?
Gravity.
Or John Ben?
Gravity.
Gravity, yep, that's right. And so another way of saying that, you could say gravity, that's fine. And another way of saying it is the penny's weight. Because remember, weight is the force of gravity acting on an object's mass. So the pennies have mass. Gravity is pulling down on them. So the penny's weight is that force, or gravity is that force. Now, The pennies are not falling down due to gravity because there's something working in the opposite direction, keeping them up. What force is that? How about Hannah?
I might be wrong, but I was thinking the card was holding it up, and the
You were thinking right. It is the card holding it up. So, giving out our dojo here. So the card is pushing back up on the pennies. The pennies are pushing down on the card with their weight, gravity, and the card is pushing back up on the pennies. Because these forces are balanced, nothing is moving. Now, when we apply a force to the card, then we're applying an unbalanced force to the card, but not to the pennies. But once the card has been removed and is no longer there holding the pennies up, now the pennies are free to be acted upon by the unbalanced force of gravity pulling them in, because the card is no longer acting in the opposite direction, pushing them up. Okay, so pennies are pushing down on the card is pushing back up on the pennies. All right, and so another question that we might have on here, let's see. Question number 2, Newton's second law, Newton's second law says that an object with an unbalanced force acting on it will accelerate. So what's the unbalanced force that causes the index card or the playing card to accelerate? So what did you had to do something. You had to apply a force to the card to make the card move. So I think you can answer that question on your own. That one's easy. And a similar question in number 3, what's the unbalanced force that causes the pennies to accelerate downward into the glass once the card is removed? And then finally, the last question here is, which law, the first, the second, or the third, explains why that when more pennies are added to the card, more force has to be applied to the card to make it accelerate. So if you look at that question there, number 4, and you're looking at those words, it's saying more force has to be applied to make the card accelerate. All right, when there's more pennies added, when there's more pennies, we're giving more mass. So there is one of Newton's laws explains that relationship between force and mass and acceleration. And so I think I probably gave that one away very easily by explaining it to you that way. All right, so that's all there is to it. This is probably the simplest lab that we will do as far as answering questions and what you have to do for a grade here. Just these 10 questions. Does anybody have any questions for me or anything you want to discuss? Somebody does. All right, let's check it out. Let's see. Will you upload this to YouTube? Absolutely, I will. For sure. So yeah, you'll be seeing that on YouTube probably in the next 30 minutes or so. It takes a little while to upload it, and then that'll be there. On Thursday, we are going to be doing the hula hoopla challenge, our lab. And if you happen to have hula hoops, if you have 3 hula hoops of different sizes, that's the ideal situation, and that's what I'm going to be doing. And if you don't know how to hoop around your waist, you can, hoop around your arm or your neck or, anything you want to do. If you don't have hula hoops at all, then I have given a few other alternatives. So one other thing you can do is take a bucket and like a string or a rope and tie a rope to the handle of the bucket. And then you can swing the bucket around on a string, and we can add mass to the bucket by adding things to the bucket. So that's another option. And a third option, if you don't have a bucket and a rope or hula hoops, is to use a pencil and 3 different sized rubber bands, and you can spin the rubber bands around on a pencil. So if you want to participate on Thursday, you can gather those materials. You'll also want a timer because we're going to be in a calculator. So those both might be your phone. We're going to be timing how many rotations we get in 1 minute. We're actually going to do it in 30 seconds and then multiply it by 2 to get how many rotations per minute. And we'll be investigating how the mass of the hoop or the bucket or the rubber band, if you're doing other things, affects the speed at which an object spins. And this is called centripetal force, which is the motion of a spinning object. So that is what we're going to be doing on Thursday. Both of these labs will be due on Friday. And if you have any questions or you need clarification, you know where to find me. I'll be on EdSP. I've been answering right away on EdSP and my office hours. Yeah, stuff. Okay. All right. Well, if anybody wants to stick around to talk, feel free to do so. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day. And I will be seeing you. Right. Bye, guys. I'm around if anyone wants to stick around. Hey, Cameron. Hi. Hi, Hannah. How's it going, Hannah?
Good.
Good. So what'd you think of the lab today? How did it go?
I think it was pretty good.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks. I get a little bit nervous when I have to do all these different things. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be even more nervous about my hula hooping on Thursday.
Yeah. Like I was doing the penny thing, and I used to just like whenever I was bored, I used to always do it. So it's really, like I did it with 1 through 8 pennies.
Oh shoot! I meant to. Dang it!
What?
I meant to tell people that if they wanted to participate and they wanted to turn on their video, that they could show us. And I totally forgot to do that. I don't know. In my comp science classes, nobody is doing the labs with me, and nobody wants to show off. So I can't get anybody to do it, but I kind of forgot that you guys might actually have done it. So would you have showed your video and done it for us if I had said something?
Yeah.
You would have? Okay, good to know.
I can show you now if you want, because I have a bunch of pennies.
Yeah, show me.
Okay. My hair's a mess. But so I have the pennies. I could do it like with 1 through.
Yeah.
Try it with 2.
Wow, you're good.
Thanks. Like I've always loved magic. The glass over that time. Good thing stayed inside it, but then the thing, like the fold next to my desk, which is against the wall. Try it again. But yeah, basically, yeah. I find it not that hard.
No, it's not too hard. Now, it would pose a little more of a challenge if you had to do it in an Erlenmeyer flask.
Yeah.
With a much smaller opening. You know what you could try? Like, I don't know if you have like a rosebud vase, or, you know, like a vase that has
I think you do.
A smaller opening, or a jug like the guy on the video. Actually, that's a better idea.
Yeah.
Like a milk jug or a juice jug he had. I have a growler, which is made for beer, but that would actually be perfect.
Yeah, like once I flicked it up from underneath, it moved, but the card stayed. The pennies fell in, but the card stayed bounced on the cup.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was really weird. Let's try 5.
The other one that I usually do at school, and I just didn't do it for you here because I'm not very good at it, is wacky pennies. And here, I'll let you do this, and then I'll tell you about it.
Keep flicking the cup.
Yeah. Wacky pennies. take your stack of pennies and put them on your like a table, but you need to be up against like a wall or something that is like a backdrop. So I can't do this, which is why I didn't do it for us. Because it's really hard. But you take a stack of pennies and you put them near like your wall.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take another penny separate, and you can either flip it or you can just like move it like this. But the idea is to make this penny move, hit the bottom penny, only the bottom penny, and push the bottom penny out.
Mm-hmm.
And and then they'll leave the stack. So that penny, replaces the bottom penny.
I've not done before, except with
So
like
it's
bigger
hard.
objects.
Yeah, you could do different objects. But yeah. So my comp science class didn't go so well because it went okay, except that I ran out of time before I finished the notes. And yeah, which would normally not be a big deal, but you did it?
But the penny went under my computer. Okay, I got it. Let's see if I can do it again. Can you see the pennies?
Yep.
I went.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got it. You're pretty close, though. It's more challenging when you go further away. Keep practicing.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to let you go because I got to post these things, and I've got to figure out how I am going to bounce back from my my issue with comp science today. That having to post everything the week before, is a problem when you don't finish everything and you have to change your plans. So I got to figure out how this is going to work. So I'm going to do that. But I am glad to see you. Always happy to see you, my dear. And keep practicing your wacky pennies. And then we'll build a catapult next week. Yeah. And for our Angry Birds game.
Okay. Well, later, if I come to your office hours, I can show you some cool. I like to do magic tricks, so maybe I can show you some. Like if it's like the ones like I can do is this your card? I'll just hide my video so that you can see your card, but I won't see the reflection of it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sure. Cool. That sounds fun.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll see you then.
Yep.
All right. Bye, Hannah.
Bye.